Forward to today's debate, and it's encouraging to see so many colleagues in attendance. Tapping into the abundant energy stored in the heat beneath the Earth's surface it's not a new idea, but exploiting the vast resources has often been overlooked in favour of other forms of renewables more readily captured on top of the ground. We've come a long way since using sources like onshore or offshore wind, tidal and solar energy to decarbonise our electricity supplies, and Scotland now produces about 97.4% of its electricity consumption from renewables. There's still a long way to go, but decarbonising heat, with heating and hot water making up around 40% of UK's energy consumption. The potential for geothermal energy to help plug the gap, providing an indigenous, low-carbon and green alternative for heating homes, is huge. The British Geological Survey's report into unlocking geothermal potential estimates the resources in the UK are sufficient to deliver about 100 years of heat supply for the entire UK, and to provide the equivalent of 85% of Scotland's or 9% of England's current electricity demands. Of course, being theoretically available is very different from being technically available, and how easily it can be exploited depends on the detailed nature of geology, the closeness of population base, and the sheer scale of projects, depth drilled and method of extraction to be considered. Geothermal ranges from shallow depth ground source heat pumps already operating on small scale to heat individual homes, up to deep geothermal extraction such as the United Downs geothermal power project, the deepest production well in UK soil at 5,275 metres, extracting power from the naturally hot water in the granite rocks deep beneath Cornwall. Somewhere between these two scales, we find a happy medium. Geothermal used for district heating networks, for local homes and businesses. There's so much potential for development of these types of heating schemes at far more efficient cost if we could take advantage of the maze of disused mines full of warm water which is beneath our feet. It would be a fantastic change of fortune for communities devastated by the pit closures to see this legacy of the industrial past being repurposed for a green energy future. I've got a particularly keen interest in this option for my constituency, Midlothian, with a long coal mining history and vast labyrinth of the old pits beneath, and we are far from unique. As an estimate, a quarter of UK homes are situated in former coalfields. Repurposing the infrastructure to yet again extract energy from the coal mines, but this time in a sustainable way, is a tremendously exciting prospect. While we have the potential, widespread use of geothermal resource is still very limited in the UK. There are many challenges to overcome, including the ownership, planning and regulatory frameworks, upfront costs and risks, and identification of suitable sites. On the latter point, I do welcome work from the Coal Authority with the British Geological Society to identify the abandoned mines which are potential sources for heat of nearby homes and make this information available openly to developers, planners and researchers. Increasing the understanding and knowledge of geothermal at a local level has a long way to go, but it's going in the right direction. Detailed research underway through the UK Geoenergy Observatories is producing open access data to assist in developing geothermal from potential to commercial reality. The Glasgow Geoenergy Observatory, which officially opened in December 2020, is focused on mine water and produces what their science lead Dr Alison Monaghan described as an unprecedented look into the subsurface. This is vital to understanding the role that shallow mine heat energy could have in decarbonising our energy supply, the risk involved in environmental management of regulation needed. The ambitious scale of research facility should help to kick-start technical innovations and to tackle some of the challenges of geothermal which have perhaps slowed progress in the past. For we've been looking into geothermal for quite a while now without making the most of its potential. Early feasibility studies included the Shawfair mine water project in Midlothian back in 2004 that looked at the potential of using mine water and heat pump technology to supply a new community heating scheme on the site of the former Monkton Hall colliery. The report concluded that there was a potential for such a scheme, with mine water contributing up to 1,708 gigawatt-hours per annum of heat. But the frustratingly progress stalled due to issues around ownership. Although much of the work has helped projects in other countries around Europe, so it wasn't all for nothing. The British Geological Survey's report, Unlocking the Potential of Geothermal Energy in the UK, looked at the progress of projects in comparable European countries, in countries such as France, the Netherlands and Germany, which have similar geothermal potential. They found geothermal energy was contributing far more significantly to the decarbonisation of the energy mix, generating jobs and helping to stimulate the economy. The report says, experience in these countries has shown that the success of geothermal development is closely linked to their government's commitment to support this technology through policies, regulations, incentives and initiatives. Such success is linked specifically to the availability of a long-term stable regulatory framework and the willingness of the state to share economic risk. Currently, it's a messy landscape and there are many measures that could be taken by the government to help geothermal progress more quickly from early stage to establish a market. And perhaps it's unsurprisingly that between 2000 and 2006, after the EU had concluded a major £20 million EU study into geothermal energy extraction from closed mines, both in Midlothian and the Netherlands, the findings were only implemented on the continent, and Midlothian never saw the benefits. The highlights not only were the value of the kind of cross-border research that we have had stripped away from leaving the EU, but the important role national governments play in fostering success of such schemes. Amongst the steps needed to be taken, there needs to be a reliable financial incentives for geothermal technology and clear, more streamlined regulations to underpin projects. I think it's fair to say that the government has been half-baked at best in its commitment to renewable energy so far, generally. And remembering the flip-flop from former Prime Minister David Cameron claiming the greenest government ever to deciding to get rid of the green crap. I'm sure there's now an honest enthusiasm for geothermal, but there's ground to be made up and it requires commitment to drive things forward. We need a clear geothermal roadmap, and I do look forward to hearing the Minister's plans in response. On a positive note, while there is much to be done, I am pleased to see that we're taking steps in the right directions. Some aspects of the political landscape are, of course, the responsibility of the devolved governments, and while Scotland does not yet have the power, have the large-scale geothermal project, Scottish Government funding has supported a number of feasibility studies. They've been working closely with stakeholders to build on the experience of two small-scale geothermal developments in the Central Belt, which each ran for over a decade. They've also sought to clarify the regulatory framework for deep geothermal projects, producing guidance documentation in liaison with the relevant regulatory authorities. Heat networks will have a key role to play in supplying Scotland's geothermal heat in the future, so I welcome the Heat Networks Scotland Act, which became law earlier this year and will create circumstances needed to unlock the full potential of the sector and support its growth. Mine water is not the only overlooked energy resource that can fuel our green ambitions, but it can pose a danger if left ignored. In Midlothian, for example, there are serious concerns about mine water discharge from the old colliery at Bilston Glen into the River Esk, contaminating water, damaging natural habitats and increasing the risk of flooding. Temporary solutions like water treatment schemes might look good in the short term, but they don't deliver anything for the communities, and there's no benefit to those who would be impacted by such an outpouring of water. And a long-term opportunity to keep the water levels under control would be required and would help generations to come. That's the kind of forward-looking outlook the government needs to encourage and foster in the industry. The green industrial revolution must not leave people behind, but get people on board. Geothermal is one way we could do this. With the right support in place, it offers a fantastic opportunity to develop low-carbon heating systems, regenerate local economies and reawaken energy extraction in coalfield communities in a sustainable way. The development of mine water geothermal across Scotland alone could deliver economic growth equivalent to £303 million and around 9,800 jobs. The timing of this debate is also critical, with COP26 just around the corner and the climate crisis already upon us. I urge the government of all nations to put aside differences and to work together to find practical solutions and not just warm words in addressing this. And let's put meat on the bones of our ambitious geothermal technologies and help it contribute much more significantly to our low-carbon energy mix. And let's get the policies right and make geothermal a critical part of the green revolution. Thank you.